When shall I mark first crack? This is one of the most commonly asked questions in coffee roasting. And it's also very relevant, especially if you want to share with other roasters about development time, development percentages, and also development of your beans. And therefore, it makes sense that you mark it the same as commonly we do it in coffee roasting. And you can imagine that the cracks, they are distributed in a Gaussian curve. So you have some cracks that are beginning, and then there is the one point where it's going to ramp up, where you have then a lot of cracks until it peaks and goes down again. And you want to catch this point here where then the cracks are ramping up. So you're not marking the first cracks that you hear, but you mark it when they're getting more and more common, or when there are more cracks appearing. And a lot of roasters are, for example, taking then a sound that is 3 cracks in a sequence, so like bap, bap, bap. And when they have the first sequence of 3 cracks, they're marking first crack. So this is a recommendation to you. But then you might have realized that some beans are cracking more and other a bit less. Oh, that's so good. So what is the reason for that? And there are some factors that are influencing the way beans are cracking. For example, the density of the beans. So the denser, the harder they are, the more they crack. Another then is also how much the processing and especially fermentations have affected the structure of the bean. So especially washed coffees, they crack much louder than when you have really strongly processed beans. And another thing is then also the way your roaster is developed or constructed, especially then with some home roasting machine like the chaff. I often hear that people are struggling to hear the first crack. And there are other aspects, because the first crack, what's happening during first crack is affecting then nearly all aspects of the bean. So you can see and hear it then in nearly all aspects, like for example the size. So the size of the bean is then changing remarkably during first crack. They're getting bigger, although this is a bit hard to spot. But what you can see, for example, is that quite a lot of chaffs are being released. So especially in a roaster that I mentioned before, chaff, you can see it has a little cuts for the air, and you can see how a lot of chaffs are then landing in those cuts. This is an indication that first crack now appeared. Or also you can smell it if you're looking on the smell of your roaster. So often when the first crack appears, you have a bit more sweetness and maltiness than in the smell. Another thing is, for example, moisture. There is a lot of moisture then being released during first crack. Or also when you have environmental temperature then measured in your roaster, look that you activate the ROR of the environmental temperature, because then often you see a little dip when the first crack appears. So there you have then also a visual indication of the first crack. What's important for you in any case is that you're consistent and you mark it everywhere or always the same, that you have a clear procedure, so that at least for yourself then you have a good reference on your profiles, and then you can go on developing profiles. But now I go on eating this popcorn. They're so good.